So you want to change some aspects of your personality. Maybe you've got a short fuse and you want to be more calm. Maybe you're shy and introverted and want to be a little more outgoing. Well, whatever your reason, you're likely asking yourself, is it even possible to change my personality? Well, the short answer is yes, but there are some steps to make that happen. Today, you'll learn the 5 traits that make up your personality and the one tip from the research, of course, that will help you make changes that last. So stay tuned. Here we are again. Yes, to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. I am your ever-loving host, Dr. Abby Medcalf. Today I was inspired because of an email that someone sent me about whether introverts and extroverts could be in love. And when I started to write that one up, I realized that I wanted to do this one first. So next week, we're going to do a whole thing on introverts and extroverts in love. This week, and you'll see why it's connected when I explain today, today we're going to be talking about can you change your personality? So I guess I want to start with, probably Sigmund Freud, right? Freud said that your personality was pretty much set by the time you turned 5. It's kind of horrifying to think. And we know from the research, that that's not necessarily at all the case. And we know that we do know though that your personality is relatively stable through adulthood, although it does tend to change a bit as we age. However, we do know that you can take action to make changes. If you're willing to take the time to educate yourself and then be consistent with the new behavior I'll talk about today. As always, I'm going to give you all the research. My listeners, you are smart ones. You want to know all the wow, the what, the how, the wow, I guess, too. And that's really what I focus on. I always tell folks, if you're looking for a quick, whatever, that's not what I do, because I think your mental health is the most important thing. To me, if you had terminal cancer and went to the doctor and they were just like, here's what we're going to do. You don't have to know anything else. We're just doing this thing, or go do this thing, or go eat this way. And you had no idea why or how it was affecting you or where that came from. Whose idea was it to eat this way or to stop smoking to lessen my chance of a heart attack? If you didn't know the research and you didn't understand the context. So it's so interesting to me that with health, people are willing, physical health, they're willing to go deeper. But with mental health, the only any negative comment I get is generally like, get to the point already. And as I always lovingly say, please move on. I'm not for you, because I'm going to give you all of it because I know you're smart. And I also know that if you understand the information, you will, and it's true, I know, because you write to me, you will actually apply it because it'll make sense. In the same way that if I said, oh, stop smoking because it's bad for your health, but you were a big smoker and you've never heard of this before, this is brand new information, you wouldn't stop just because I said so. You'd want to know all of it. And that's how I treat your mental health. I'm here to make long-term change, and so are you. So I'm really glad you're here. If I don't tell you enough, I love you. I'm so happy we have this relationship. I really am. And I'm so happy to be here with you. So you could, before I jump in, you also might be thinking that if you're born this way, that's what a lot of people think. Well, if I'm born this way, how can I make changes? I've always been outgoing, or I've never liked meeting new people. But what we know, again, from the research is that personality is mostly due to a mix of your genes and your environment. So nature and nurture, it's a mix. Nature is definitely a big component, but nurture is in the running. And again, things that are heritable doesn't mean they're not changeable. So, and we'll go into that. So let's talk about the big 5, what we call the big 5 personality traits. And, psychologists we've spent decades coming up with different theories of what traits make up a person's personality. But in the 70s, it's really cool how this stuff happens. In the 1970s, 2 research teams working independently came up with what is now known as the Big 5 personality traits, which is what really most things are based on. And yeah, there's the MBTI or you might do one of your little things at work, a Myers-Briggs or something. But I say with love, there's really not a lot of research to support a lot of that stuff. There's just not. There's research to support the things that go into it, but there's not, like why you would look at this or look at that. But there's really not a lot on the other side that's super, super robust and reputable. But, and I love all those things. I love taking a good test, but really the big 5 personality traits, we've got a lot to back us up. So these 2 teams got to this at this pretty much the same time. The first team was made up of Paul Costa and Robert McRae at the National Institutes of Health. And the other team was Warren Norman. He was at the University of Michigan, and Louis Goldberg, who was at the University of Oregon. And although they took slightly different paths how they got there, they ended up at the same place. So, and what's most important, at least to me, to note here is that neither set of researchers was trying to find these, I'm trying to prove these 5 dimensions of personality. Instead, they didn't go in with the 5 going, let's prove it. Instead, these were the 5 dimensions that emerged as a result of their research. So I find that compelling, huge, way to go. So after you listen today, I want you to come on over to the website where I have a link to take a test to see. I know, who doesn't love a test? Aren't you excited now? AbbieMedcalf.com, coming over to the Relationship Tips and Tools page or the podcast page for this episode, which I think we're on 287. This is 287. Woo, we're getting up there to 300 people. And I'll have a link to the test. There's many tests, so you can go look online yourself and find one. But I like this test. It's put out by a bunch of, it is the test. It's put out by a bunch of researchers who are using it for research purposes, which I like. And it's a very cool way when you take the test. There's a way that you can take it where you compare yourself to someone else. And often that gives us better results, we know from the research, because you might think, oh, I'm not very open. But then, or whatever, or I'm not whatever. And then when you compare yourself to somebody that you might see, oh, I'm more open than them. You might score yourself, or, oh, I think I'm open, but I'm actually not as open as they are. It gives you more relativity to give yourself a better score. So this particular test is even more robust, I think, than other tests. So I will link to it. Coming over, if you're watching me on YouTube, hello, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me how much you like my shirt or my earring or something. Just say hi. If you're over there, then it'll be listed below in the resources, below the video. Okay. So any way you go, you can find it. All right. Because I think you're going to want to take the test, right? Let's be real. You're going to do all this. You're like, well, I want to take the damn test, Abby. But it's also important to note that these big 5 traits hold up even when taking culture and language into account. There are, of course, whenever you look at culture and language too, there are always some fascinating differences when you look at the research, but there's really nothing that stands out as statistically significant, at least so far. So for all of my beautiful people listening from, Australia or Great Britain or wherever, if you're sitting there in Sweden right now listening or watching, you can still take the test and it really should be spot on. Okay. So I'm always thinking of you too. All right. So all of the personality traits, excuse me, this big 5 are really on, I want you to think of them on a continuum, which I'll explain in a moment, but we'll start with the trait. So we'll talk about the continuum, but let me just explain the traits themselves. And then we'll chat about what it means to be high in a trait or low in that. What are those big 5 traits? So in school, way back in school, way long ago, I was a student. I'm always a student, but you know what I mean. And I was taught to remember the big 5 personality traits with the acronym OCEAN. And that's how I'm going to teach them to you today, OCEAN. So the O is for openness. Again, it's going to be a continuum, and I'll explain it in a minute. The C is for conscientiousness. The E is for extroversion. Sometimes it says it's extraversion with an A, and sometimes extroversion with an O. It's the same. It's a long story, but it's basically how psychology how we look at things and how things get changed sometimes in the literature when they're looking at something. And so both terms are appropriate. So whichever way you see it written, it's fine. The A is for agreeableness and the N is for neuroticism. And all of these categories might not be what you think they are. So really listen well. And then, of course, we'll get to the tips and the big tip, I should say, and all that. Okay. So, and you know me, I'm going to get very specific, very nitty gritty with the tip because that's what I do. So let's start with openness, ocean, right? Openness. Openness, the continuum for openness would start with a high of being very creative and a low of resisting change and new ideas. So that's how I want you to think of this, again, continuum. And you can be anywhere on the continuum just because you could score in the middle, you could score really low, really high, whatever. So people who score higher on this dimension would be creative. They like new challenges. They're open to trying new things, meeting new people. Whereas people on the lower end of this continuum would be more rigid or maybe conventional, you would think of them. There's more right or wrong or black and white thinking, and they're not very imaginative. They'd likely struggle with abstract concepts, whereas people who score higher on openness are really great with abstract. They could talk about things in that way. And people scoring lower would rather stick to routine and not try new things. Okay? So you can probably already see a little bit as we're talking where you're high or where you're low, right? Even before taking the test, you can kind of go, oh, well, yeah, I see where I might be on this. Conscientiousness, the continuum here would start with a high of being really organized, thoughtful about things, and a low of a lot of procrastination and really being more messy. I say with love in your life and scheduling. So this is like when we think of conscientiousness, we don't always think of it in this way. That's why I'm saying it might not be the definition you've already thought of. So that hence listening, closely to what I'm saying. So people scoring higher on conscientiousness have better impulse control. They see the details in things. They're looking for the details. They even enjoy the details. They like having a set schedule and goals. Meanwhile, people who score lower on this dimension, they don't generally like structure. They often don't complete tasks. They're more easily distracted and can even be irresponsible. And I know some of you are like, well, that's just ADHD. It's not. Some people might have ADHD and show up that way more, but it does not mean that. And I think, again, we confuse sometimes mental health symptoms with personality traits. And that happens a lot. I say this a lot to addicts, people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol. I know we're not supposed to use that word anymore, so I apologize. But I don't apologize. I use that word. When people are struggling or have a drug or alcohol problem, they often, when they're in the throes of their addiction, will act very lazy or lie a lot or cheat or be irresponsible or self-centered, all those things. But when we're clean or sober, the symptoms alleviate, and we are not those things. Our true personality comes forward. We are not lazy. We are not those things. I am certainly not lazy. I'll tell you that. I got a lot of things going on in my life. But when I was a drug addict, I was very lazy. I didn't want to do anything. So that's what happens, and we can easily mistake one for the other, and it's really important to separate the two. Okay? Really important. All right. So that was the O and the C in ocean. Now we're going to get to the E, which is extroversion. And this particular continuum of the big 5 personality traits is about how sociable you are. Okay? To me, it's the broadest of the traits, when we talk about these continuums, with higher scores showing more initiative, feeling energized by others, being more sociable, enjoying new people, new experiences, being really good at communicating, being comfortable as a center of attention. All those things would be on the higher end of extroversion. On, of course, the lower end of extroversion, we would think of introversion. And that's at the lower end, which would include people who prefer being alone, who feel drained by other people, who are maybe more reserved, and sometimes seen as shy, although introversion and shyness do not need to be the same. Again, these can be different. And likely more submissive to authority, actually, on that end. So, and again, as I said earlier, next week I'm going to do an episode on introverts and extroverts in love. So make sure you stay tuned for that, like, can it work kind of thing. But now you can see why I was thinking of those things. I was doing this thinking, oh, this is really 2 episodes. Okay, so that's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion. Those are the first OCE. And the A is agreeableness. In Ocean is agreeableness. And this trait is all about how you deal with other people. So people who are highly agreeable are friendly, they're altruistic, they're empathetic, they enjoy helping others, they care about others, they're warm. On the lower end of this particular spectrum of agreeableness are people who don't care so much about other people. It doesn't mean you're mean or evil, but they just don't. They're more shy. They're often suspicious of others. They might not care how other people feel. They'd be more egocentric. They're more competitive. They have little interest in someone else's struggles and might belittle or insult other people. They might manipulate others to get what they want. Any of those things. I know. And now we're to the N of Ocean, the last one, which is neuroticism. I know you think, everyone's probably going, I'm high on neuroticism, Abby. Well, you don't know that for sure, okay? But yes, you might be, but let's not assume it. Neuroticism, this continuum is all about your emotional stability. So people scoring, this is one of the ones you don't want to score high on, okay? So the other 4, you want to score sort of high on openness or conscientiousness, or higher, I should say. Not necessarily high, but agreeableness, extroversion. But with neuroticism, you want to score lower, right? So people who are scoring higher on this trait they're anxious, they're irritable, they're more sad, they have less self-confidence, more anxiety, they experience a high amount of stress in their overall lives. That's what I see the most. People with lower scores on the neuroticism dimension are more emotionally stable. They're more resilient. They bounce back easier from setbacks. They're more calm and relaxed. They have more self-confidence, and they're really just more satisfied overall in their lives. And they are rarely sad or depressed. Again, when you're like way on, so you could be in the spectrum. Remember, the continuum. You're not necessarily extroverted or introverted or neurotic or not. It's where are you in the spectrum of things. So the research shows, and I'm sure it doesn't take a genius to see why, that the people who score higher on the first 4 traits and lower on the last trait, neuroticism, the research shows they're more satisfied in their lives, they report being happier, and they're physically healthier than on the other end. So the good news is that the research also shows that you can likely move these scores into more satisfying areas for yourself, so you can shift your personality. How permanent those changes become really boils down to your consistency and changing really, this important factor, which we're going to talk about today. And on just as a last note, I want to say that, research shows that personality does tend to change as you age. Most become calmer and more socially sensitive as they age. We refer to this as the maturity principle. However, things like narcissism, and again, I wouldn't put that necessarily in a personality trait as much as a mental health disorder. Mental health disorders tend to get worse over time, not better. Yeah, that's how you can sort of tell where things are. So mental health disorders, we find get more entrenched and worse. So if someone was tending towards narcissism, they probably become more narcissistic as they get older, not less. Does that make sense? Okay. Just want to clear that up. All right. So here's the top tip. Yeah. The top tip. Here is the top tip for changing your personality. If you Google tips for changing your personality, which I did, you'll find things like Try something new once a month. If you're lower, let's say on extroversion, like if you're more introverted and you're looking to be more extroverted, like on that personality trait, it'll say things like that. Makes sense, right? Hey, try something new once a week or once a month or whatever. And that's all well and good. Go do that. I think that's fine. But there's other research that really gets to the heart of the matter. This is why we care about the research, because to me, otherwise, you're going to have a list of let's say in all 5 categories, you feel like you're not where you want to be. All the things you're going to feel like you have to do, like this list. I got to try this. I got to go to the gym once a week. I don't want that for you. So when I was digging and reading all the stuff, I realized, this is the one thing you can really change that gets to the heart of the matter and will help you more in the long term. And I would say in every aspect of your life. How do you like that? Your overall happiness, everything. So many experts, including one of my girl crushes, Carol Dweck. Everyone knows I love Carol Dweck. Pretty much everyone says that this group says that the real answer to creating lasting personality change is centered on changing your underlying beliefs and your daily habits. Okay? Now, I've got many episodes you can listen to about changing habits. Most notably, I did an interview with Stanford researcher B.J. Fogg and his best-selling book, Tiny Habits. I've also done, how to have, the best habits of changing a relationship backed by research. I've done an episode on how to start your day off right. That's, to me, the most important habit change I think you should make is how you start your day. I really do. If you do nothing else, do that. I will link to all of those in the show notes underneath the video on YouTube, all the places, the relationship tips and tools page. It'll all be there. You can listen to all those episodes. Because I go deep on each one. And all these current episodes, if I included all the older stuff I did every time, I'd be Andrew Huberman. They'd be 3 hours long. And I don't know. I don't want to sit through 3 hours. And I don't think you do either. So today I'm going to focus on changing the underlying beliefs. That's what we're going for, because I have to tell you, that's huge. Changing your underlying belief systems is the key. I have spent many hours on this podcast talking about the huge importance of uncovering your underlying beliefs and belief systems so you can change the ones that don't work for you. And Dweck, and there's like I said, there's this one really great paper I read that wasn't even too long. And again, I'll link to that. She says, people's beliefs include their mental representations of the nature and workings of the self, of their relationships, and of their world. Nothing big, just your mental. In other words, what you picture in your mind of everything. Every relationship you have of yourself, of the world, of politics, housing, climate change, everything is in that. So, and she says, from infancy, humans develop these beliefs and representations, and many prominent personality theorists of different persuasions all acknowledge that they are a fundamental part of personality. So she goes on to quote other esteemed personality researchers in this paper as she explains that personality includes how we perceive ourselves, others, and the events that happen in our lives. Okay? So how you perceive yourself and others is what you believe. Your perceptions are your beliefs. That I know you're thinking, well, no, they're not. They're what I see. No, you see something that's through the lens of your perceptions. That's what you end up seeing. So I've shared before, if my mother used to comment on like, oh, you got your hair cut. I'm seeing that through a lens of who I believe my mother to be and how she talks to me. And because you've had this, you've overreacted, quote unquote, to something, or you felt like someone meant something else when they said something to you because you knew. You don't know. We all have to just get over ourselves. I talk about this so much in other episodes, so I don't want to go deep here, but you have a skewed way of thinking because of your perceptions. So how you perceive yourself and others, what you believe, is really at the core of what motivates you, how you set goals, how you prioritize. So if you want to change your personality, you've got to look at these beliefs you have about yourself and others and really how you perceive just the world working. So this all relates to Dweck's earlier, really groundbreaking work with the concept of a fixed or growth mindset. I went into that on episode, I think it's 270. I'll link to it, about that a growth mindset is really the key to having an empowered mindset. I did that right around the first of the year as we were coming into 2024. So, and I did it all there, but basically a growth mindset is what you want. So if you believe that a growth mindset believes that you can figure crap out, I can figure anything out, everything's figure outable. If that's something you believe, that's a growth mindset. You're going to be open to new things, taking on new challenges, which would have you scoring higher on the openness trait, for example. But if you believe you're stupid, or if you believe I can't learn new things, I've tried, nothing comes to me easily, everything is hard, you can see how this is going to have you scoring much lower on this continuum. So changing how you perceive yourself, that belief you have, your beliefs about yourself, is key to changing your personality. Again, not just on openness, but I would argue on all big 5 traits, on all of them. So, right? Is this sinking in? Like, really let that sink in. Just that. If I believe that everything is figure outable, I would say I'd be bigger on a lot of these. If I believe that all people are intrinsically good, or that if I just believed, you know what, I'm strong and what other people say doesn't bother me because I know who I am and that's the most important thing. Oh my God, how much would that change how your personality and how you show up in the world? Are you kidding me? So do you see? Just your beliefs. That's why I'm going after just your beliefs today. I'm going to get really nitty gritty in a moment. So get ready. So let's look at each big 5 personality trait and discuss how to look at having new beliefs in each one. I think the best way to do this would be through some kind of journaling where you actually wrote down answers to what these questions I'm about to say, these prompts I'm going to give you. But I guess you could do them in your head. You could do a little right now as we go over this, but I think you'd do better to make this a written exercise. So again, if you go to my website, abbymedcalf.com, and you go to this episode, to the relationship tips and tools page, the entire thing, like I said, is written out. So all these questions will be there. You don't have to, right now you're probably running for a piece of paper or, oh no, I gotta slow down, Abby, or you put me on pause. You don't need to. It's all right there later. Listen now, just try to take in what I'm saying because it'll be harder if you're taking notes. Try to just take it in. If you really have to take notes, I love you, it's fine. But later go back, and that's why I have it there. I do that extra work. What for what? So you go there. I'm not selling you anything at the bottom. I'm doing it because I love you. I want to make this easier for you, and I want you to change your life. That's why I take the time to write up the relationship tips and tools, the blog post. It is not a transcript of the episode, so it's easy to read. There's categories. It's kind of great. That's what I'm telling you. And if you haven't rated the podcast yet, if you haven't left me a review, what are you waiting for? We are in a relationship. Please come leave a review. They mean the world to me. I read every one. I love them. And it also really helps other people find me and find the podcast. It does a lot. You'd be like really, really a lot. And I've got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people listening, and I don't have hundreds of thousands of reviews. So please, if you've been liking this, subscribe and follow on YouTube or leave a review. There's ways that you can help, and that really help me get the word out and help other people get this great information. Wouldn't you love it if everyone knew what you know from listening? Wouldn't the world be a better place? Yes, the answer is a resounding yes. So you can do your part for world peace just by sharing this, liking it, leaving a review. That's what I'm saying. I know. So, openness. Let's get there. If you score lower on this dimension, right? So you're going to go take the test later and you're going to see, but already you kind of know, yeah, I hate new things, or I love new things. But if you already know that you score lower on this dimension, I would recommend looking at your beliefs related to being more open. So you would take some time answering questions like these. So you would sit down, right? Journaling. I did an entire episode on journaling and how to do it and how to set aside 15 minutes or something. And that's what I would like you to do. I would even like you to do maybe 10 minutes a day per question or something like that, or set aside 30 minutes and do the 3 questions. But I'd really like you to dig a little deeper, not just write a sentence. That's not going to get you to your beliefs. You got to take a minute. You got to get a little deeper. You got to uncover. Okay. Got to uncover. So here's the questions. When I try something new, I'm worried that, and then finish the sentence. When I try something new, I'm worried that. So think about it when you start to write. When I try something new, I'm worried that other people will laugh at me, that I'll be embarrassed, that other people will talk about me. Do you see what's going on here? This is a belief you have. So then you would go a little deeper. Well, maybe, right? Then I would tell you to get your own journaling prompt, like from that. Well, why am I so worried about what other people think? Why is my happiness more important, less important than what other people think of me? What would happen if I was embarrassed? And why would it be embarrassing? Who says it's embarrassing except me? So other people do it and they're not embarrassed. Other people try new things and they fall and they whatever. What is that? You start to get a little deeper into your beliefs about, and by the way, no one's thinking about you or looking at you except you, but I get it, but you start to do that. The second question would be, I feel safest when? That's a great question, by the way, for any of these 5, just to answer that. If you did that every day, answer just that question. I feel safest when? And write out all the ways you feel safest. And then question yourself about that. Again, you want to go a little deeper. Why do I feel safest when I'm alone? Why is that? What is it about being alone that feels safe? And is that really safe? Is that safe? What does safe mean to me? Then I would go to there. What does safe mean to me? Why is safe important? And I think safe should be important, don't get me wrong, but why is it to you? What else could be safe? Could other people be safe? Could more people supporting me be safe? Maybe. If I was less rigid or structured, however you want to say that, I'm afraid that, there's another good one. If I was less rigid or less structured, I'm afraid that, and then talk about, what are you afraid of? What do you think could happen? And then I want you to answer, so knowing or understanding this, whatever that you wrote, a new belief I could have is, that people are safe, that trying new things is fun, that I can approach new things with a new attitude, that I could try new things alone, try it that way so I don't feel embarrassed first, that I could start small and work my way up, right? Any new belief you could have, I would then put it in there. You see how that works? I know, kind of cool, right? Conscientiousness. If you score lower on this dimension, right? If you're somebody who is procrastinating all the time, very messy with things, has a hard time, following through, I would recommend looking at your beliefs related to being more organized, right? So you take some time and answer these questions. And here's one of my favorites that I use. And I use it with even folks who have ADHD, which of course I did a whole episode on ADHD. If you want to go ADHD at work, loving someone who has ADHD, you can go look those up. You could ask procrastination, or you could journal, right? Or prompt. Procrastination serves me because, procrastination serves you. Maybe it's because no one asks me to do anything. I get less work this way. Maybe it's some kind of weaponized procrastination. It serves me because I don't have to ever, I can just be this loser that no one expects things from. And I'm not saying you're a loser if you procrastinate. I'm saying you think that, right? You might think that. But procrastination does serve you. It's not all bad, or you wouldn't be doing it. The pain of it would make you do something else. So there's a place it serves you. You could also ask yourself, I don't think I can be self-motivated because, I have clients who say, without a deadline, I just can't do it. Well, that is a faulty premise. That is faulty logic. And that is a faulty belief system. You have a belief. Yeah, I guess in the past. Your past doesn't equal your future. Your past equals your present. What you do now equals your future. Got it? I'll say it again. Your past doesn't equal your future. That saying is bullshit. Your past equals your present. What you do now equals your future. Okay? Right? So your past of eating poorly maybe equals your present weight or fitness level. But what you do now is going to say your future. Like literally right this minute now is going to determine if a year from today you weigh 20 pounds less, or that you're super physically fit, or you have more muscle, or whatever it is that you're looking for, right? What you do now. What's that? There's like some Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today or is now. It's, excuse me if I'm massacring that, but it's something like that. And the other thing you might journal is, when I think of being more organized, I think, when I think of being more organized, it means, or I feel, that's another thing you can put there instead of I think, I feel. So get this stuff in to see, because you might notice, when I think of being more organized, I feel anxious. It's like, whoa, why? Why do I feel anxious when I think of being more organized? And then get deeper. It might be that you think people expect more from you. Or maybe whenever your mother was super organized growing up and was kind of anal type A crazy, and you feel like you'll be like her and you don't want to be like her. I don't know. I don't know what beliefs are driving your behavior that doesn't work for you. But you're saying this doesn't work for me because I want to be a little more this other way, or I've had trouble staying in relationships or keeping jobs because of these particular personality traits, so I want to shift them. So it's time to get deep, my friend. It's time to go a little deeper. And again, knowing or understanding whatever I just wrote, a new belief I could have is, and then you would write that. All right, extroversion. If you score lower on this dimension, if you score, more towards introversion, and you don't like that, I don't think there's anything wrong with introversion, by the way. I think that I just want to be really clear. I don't want to pathologize introversion as like a bad thing. Matter of fact, next week I'll be talking about that. There's nothing wrong with being introverted. There's only something wrong if you've never been in a love relationship because of it, because you're too afraid. If it's getting in the way of work, or you don't end up working, or you don't have any friends, or you don't ever try anything new, or you're too afraid to leave your apartment or whatever, then I'm like, no. And to me, again, this is an extreme of this personality trait, and maybe even some mental health issues that got involved. So I don't mean to, again, pathologize things that are just, how you sort of like to be more. That's fine. Spending more time alone, fine. It's, again, how you manage that and how you feel about it. It's really about you, not about me judging it, or your mom or your dad or anyone else. It's about you. What is your comfort level with where you are? So if you're there and you want to shift to be, a little more extroverted maybe, I would recommend looking at your beliefs related to being more sociable. So you would answer things like, when I think of being at a party, I feel. When I'm alone, I feel safer because. When I think of being more outgoing, I'm worried that. See that? When I think of being more outgoing, I'm worried that. When you use it, you'll see. I'm telling you, as I'm saying them out loud, if you're just listening, you'll be like, I don't know. When you sit to write, some stuff's going to come out of you that you were not expecting. And again, now that you know or understand this new, what's a new belief you could have? So agreeableness, if you score lower on this dimension, I would recommend you look at your beliefs related to how you think of other people. So you might answer these prompts. I'm suspicious of other people's motives because if I thought about other people's feelings, I'm worried that, maybe you're worried that you would lose yourself, or maybe you saw your dad do that and give everything to your narcissistic mom. I don't know. But you want to think about what that is. It's important to remain competitive because other people take advantage of me, and because of this and because of that. It's the only way to stay ahead. It's the only way to be safe. And then what else could be true about that? That kind of thing. And again, now that you know and understand this, what's a new belief you could have around this one? Okay. And then neuroticism. If you score if you score higher on this dimension, I would recommend looking at your beliefs related to your emotional stability. So you take some time answering things like, if I wasn't anxious, I'd be worried that. That's one of the things I give to my anxious folks, one of the prompts, right? If I wasn't anxious, I'd be worried that. I have a lot of people who fill in pages from that. I'd be worried that there's something I'm missing. I'd be worried that I wouldn't be creative anymore. I wouldn't have new ideas. You'd be amazed. So write that down, because that is a belief system. I've worked with some people, sort of famous entertainers, we'll call them, in different fields, who are worried that when they came off drugs and alcohol, they wouldn't be creative anymore. It's a belief. I won't be able to write music anymore. I won't be able to be on stage anymore. I won't be able to, run a football or whatever. They have a belief about being that. Do you see where that goes? I know. Being anxious. It's interesting, or doing drugs or whatever. You have beliefs. Another one I give to folks who score higher on neuroticism is, if I was calm, I'd be worried that it's kind of the same question, but a little bit different. Or you might prompt yourself with, I don't think it's possible to be fully relaxed because, there you go. These are really good ones. And again, understanding this, what's a new belief I could have? When we do things like journaling with prompts like these, we get under our thoughts to what we actually believe. And from there, that's where you can make changes. And I'm going to tell you, because I love you, I'm going to give you 3 super quick more tips. 3 super quick more tips, just because I love you, that are just different. Okay. If you've listened this far, you get extras. So there's a free Journaling Made Easy. Journaling Made Easy. It's a journaling companion that you can download with my latest book, which is sitting behind me if you're watching a video, called Boundaries Made Easy, Your Roadmap to Connection, Ease, and Joy. If you buy the book, even if you listen to it on Audible, it doesn't matter, which is my melodious voice, which I know you love. If you buy the book, I have a free journaling companion for it. And it's for every chapter in that book. There's like 24 chapters in that book. So I go in more depth so you can uncover your underlying beliefs about a lot of areas in your life, like your self-esteem, confidence, why it's hard saying no to other people, how to manage your emotions. I go deeper into all of those in that journaling companion. And I believe you would find that very, very helpful to changing your personality. And even in that book, I have a 5th section. I could have ended the section ended the book with a 4th section, but because when you change your boundaries, when you really get good at them, you do change your personality. You change who you are in the world, how you show up, how you feel about yourself. You change it all. I'm just telling you. That's why I wrote the book. So when you do that, right, you are going to be changing your personality. So it's really important. Like, think about that. So if you really want to look at changing your personality, I would also tell you to get the book if you haven't gotten it yet. How do you like that? Okay. But doing the journaling with it, amazing. And I did this whole 5th section because it's all about who you are after that and how you kind of grow to the next level. Okay. So, all right. The second quick tip here, is to get good at cognitive reframing, which is another way we nudge at our belief systems. Changing your view, how you view life, one of the big ones, a cognitive reframe is just when you change your viewpoint or perception about something. And I did an entire episode on it, which I will link here in the show notes, and on the Relationship Tips and Tools page and below the video. The one I use the most is life is happening for me, not to me. When everything that's happening, bad or good, and you think life is happening for me, not to me, it completely changes your beliefs and ideas about what's happening in a given situation. And I'm also going to give you a free, if you come on over to the website, I'm going to have a download for you, a free download for a tool that helps you do this. It's called Rational Motive Therapy. I've talked about this tool before. You might have already downloaded it. If you haven't, come on over. You can download. It's free. What will happen, because I'm always transparent, is that you will be on my weekly love letter list. And if you're not on the love letter list, I don't know what you're waiting on. I don't sell anything. You don't get 50 emails, nothing like that. It is a weekly inspirational love letter from me to you. That's all it is. I tell a story or I give you some research on something. If you like the podcast, you're going to freaking love the love letter. I just need to say that. I get huge response to the love letter, and it's really one of my other than the podcast, it's my absolute favorite thing I do all week. So, and it comes out every week, except like 4 weeks a year, just like the podcast. And again, if you don't like it, unsubscribe. It's not a big deal. But it's not a sleazy thing. It's just a love thing. It's meant to help. It's meant to broaden your perspective. That's all. So you can get the free tool and you'll get on that list. And if you don't like being on the list, keep the tool and do that. But the RET tool will help you with this changing of beliefs, changing how you believe, what you think about something so that you can feel differently. And then the third thing I'm going to remind you of is something I've had for a long time that a lot of people have not taken advantage of, is that you can download my free, it's free, it's a Learned Optimism Jumpstart Workshop. Now, this thing, it's a workshop I get paid to do out in the world. Okay, people pay me lots of money to come and do this, and it's free. It's on my website. And it is, I teach you all about learned optimism. You take the optimism test. There's a test, and I teach you how to score it, and you score it with me. And you will learn how to shift from a more negative mindset, or a more pessimistic mindset, I should say, to a more optimistic one, which has tons of health benefits, tons of good benefits everywhere. It's based on the work of Martin Seligman. It is his, out of the University of Pennsylvania. It is his test. And it's really good. It's going to take about an hour of your time. It's going to take a minute, but it's be a great thing to do with your partner or your best friend or just on your own. That's on the shop page of my website, but it's free. You don't have to put in a credit card. Again, nothing I do is sleazy. If you haven't been with me long enough, you don't know that, but I'm here to tell you now, you will never find a sleazy thing from me. You're just not gonna. So you can get the free Learned Optimism Jumpstart Workshop. I made that as a giveaway for my first 100 episodes of the podcast. So I did this a while ago, and I'm really proud of it, and it's great, and it's there. So the shop page of my website, it's right near the top. Go for it. And while you're there, you can buy yourself an inspirational mug or notebook to journal in. How do you like that? There you go. So another way to support me. Why not? But if you don't want to spend a penny, it's all there anyway. So there you go. Woo! And there you have it. There was a lot of information, I know. There was so much I wanted to just download with you today and really get you thinking about. So hopefully that helped you in a multitude of ways. As always, thank you for being here with me. I love our time together. I love you. I am sending you just a huge hug from anywhere you are in the world. Please email, DM, let me know you're out there. It's really what keeps me going. Thank you, thank you. I do try to answer everybody. It's hard sometimes. Sometimes it takes me some weeks. But I try to, at least acknowledge that I heard from you in some, and it's me. It's not a robot. It's not one of my assistants. It's me. Because I think that's important in our relationship. And I'm going to do it as long as I can figure out how to do it. Have an amazing week. Know that there's great love here for you in this world. And I will see you soon.